My starting point, and this is what matters, and this is why I like to give these talks, my starting point is that technology is making the world better. It's making us healthier. It's making us live longer. It's expanding our imaginations. It's giving us powers we never had before. It's doing a lot of good. There's new technologies being developed right now that are going to save a lot of lives, make humanity much better off. But at the same time, as we all know, as anybody who's alive in 2019 knows, it's also messed a lot of stuff up. And what we need to do now, at this moment where a lot of other technology is coming, one of the things we need to do now is have conversations about technology and about what it's doing and about the choices we make now that kind of set the path for the way technology develops. Because there's been some choices made in the last 10 or 20 years that weren't the best ones. And they created some of the chaos we have right now. We're at a moment where our relationship to machines is going to fundamentally change and where they're going to fundamentally reshape society. And obviously they've been doing that, right? And one of the things about technology is it never slows down. You never catch up. The rate of change always accelerates. But we're also now approaching the moment where machines will, in most ways, be more intelligent than humans. And that's going to be an interesting inflection point. And remember, one of the things about creating more intelligent machines is that it then helps you create the next intelligent machine. So the smarter the machines get, the smarter the machines get because they're inventing the new machines. So that's partly why we're at that point in human progress. Another reason is because of something called Moore's Law. You're probably familiar with, you've probably heard of. It's this crazy, crazy phenomenon in technology that the processing power of computers doubles every year and a half. And it's been that way for, this chart goes back to 1900. Everybody always talks, my whole life that I've been in technology, people say we're at the edge, it's going to stop, and it doesn't stop. Because when you invent a fast machine, it helps you invent a new fast machine. It helps you invent a new microprocessor. But what doubling every year and a half means is that the phone you have in your pocket is more powerful than the supercomputers that Ronald Reagan had during the Cold War. It means that the phone you have in your pocket, which maybe costs $800, all of that technology in just a few years will cost $10 and then $1. It means that the iPhone you might have in your pocket will be as powerful in 10 years as something that costs $1 now. Technology will just get amazing, and it's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. There's one thing that has not made me optimistic. And one thing about this period in life that I think is one of the hardest things we have to deal with as a society. And it's the way technology has affected politics. This is the cover of a story I wrote or the cover of Wired, a story I wrote on Facebook last year. And I feel like technology has had a really deleterious effect on the way our political system works. In the way it works in the United States, the country I know best, but in the way it works all around the world. And a couple of things have happened. So the first, social networks that have been created, Facebook, Twitter, others, YouTube, prioritize sensationalism, right? The thing that appeals to our lizard brain and that sucks us in. And so that has created incentives for people who post things to post highly emotional, outrageous, false content. It has created an incentive for politicians to go in that direction, and it has helped politicians who go in that direction. It has made it easier for fake news, which often falls in those categories, or Russian propaganda, to spread. So because of the algorithms, we have a problem. Another issue, slightly more complicated, is the issue of filter bubbles. Social media, the business model is based on slicing and dicing people. It turns out we also slice and dice ourselves. So our social media feeds end up often having politics from one perspective, not from another perspective. TV is probably worse at creating filter bubbles, but technology and social media exacerbates it. Third, there's an advertising business model. This is one of the things, this is what Donald Trump was able to use most effectively on Facebook. People think fake news is how Facebook helped elect Donald Trump, but it's not. He used their advertising tools to very effectively identify potential voters and reach them. And one of the things I worry about the most is that the advertising tools on Facebook, which allow you to highly target people, kind of work better at a lower price if you're trying to get them to not vote than if you're trying to get them to vote. So if your objective is to suppress the vote, it's fairly easy on social media and fairly cheap. If your objective is to get people to vote for you, it's harder. So you end up with a political system where candidates are being pushed to the extremes on both sides, on the left, on the right, or even in the center, where politics are becoming angrier We're not able to talk to each other as much as we were. I remember back 10 years ago when the Arab Spring came about, being very excited about the powers of technology. In fact, for a long time, I thought that technology was going to spread democracy, bring people together. That would be one of the fundamental powers of it. When protests started in the Arab Spring, I remember thinking it was going to be a Twitter revolution. There's a guy named Wael Ghonim. He was a young man in Egypt, and he had the same thought. His political awakening moment was when he was a teenager and he saw a video, might have been on YouTube, might have been on another site, of somebody stepping on a picture of Mubarak. He said, nobody can do that in the streets of Egypt. It's amazing to be able to see that. And so he helped organize the uprisings in Tahrir Square. He started the Facebook page that in some ways provoked the protests that led to Tahrir Square. He was one of the leaders of that movement. He was one of the people who spoke up there. And then what he noticed as that movement passed, after they got rid of Mubarak, he noticed that the people who had brought everybody together were starting to split apart. And the loudest, most extreme voices, whether they're from the Muslim Brotherhood or they're from the radicals who had been opposed to Mubarak, were winning out. And the more solemn centrists were not doing well. And so he watched, this is where this quote comes from, he watched the democratic movement in Egypt being split apart by social media just as it had come together to knock away the Mubarak regime. And so in some ways, the story of Wael Ghonim is the story of the faltering promise of politics and technology, this dream that technology would bring people together, would lead us all to the same information, would make it easier to organize, would make it easier to take down authoritarians and dictators. And actually, what it's done, certainly in the last few years, is pry apart democracy. So this is, I think, one of the deepest existential questions for people who care about tech, is how can we design the tools better? How can we design the systems better? How can we all use the systems better as users, as people who build it, as people who comment, as people who share posts? How can we take this magical tool of technology, this wonderful thing, the wonderful powers of Moore's law, and how can we make democracy work better instead of work worse? Another important way the world will change through technology is geopolitics. This is probably the issue that I spent the most time thinking about and writing over the last year, and I think it is probably the most pressing issue in technology in the world right now. So I have a profound belief that the country that masters artificial intelligence and that improves the most in artificial intelligence will increase its geopolitical power. I think that's clear. Artificial intelligence is the most important technology in the world, or in the next 5 or 10 years. It will profoundly affect our economies. If a country does better at it, and if it fosters companies that succeed in it, it will do better, and as it does better, its power will increase. I think that's true. Its military will be more effective. It's not guaranteed, all things go wrong, but I think it's a really important issue. Well, what country is thinking about it the most? What country is working on it the hardest? It's China, right? China has made artificial intelligence a huge national priority, has committed hundreds of billions of dollars, has developed whole cities devoted to artificial intelligence. China is way ahead in thinking about this, way beyond certainly where the United States is, certainly from a government level. Technically, the companies are probably at a similar level. Canada is ahead of where the United States is in thinking about it as a national policy. But the consequences of this are pretty profound. So let's say China moves well ahead in artificial intelligence that will make Chinese citizens live longer, which is great, make them be wealthier, which is great. One of the great world success stories has been the rising prosperity of China over the last several decades. But what does it mean for geopolitics? What if China's military becomes stronger relative to the West's? Not only that, what does it mean for the technology itself? Because technology has values baked into it as it develops. A lot of the AI being built in China has applications for surveillance, right? Image recognition, tracking people. There's a social credit system that tracks, basically it's your FICO score tied to your political adherence. It's a complicated system that measures how well every Chinese citizen complies with the needs and desires of the state. It can be very useful for running an organized society, but not something that matches Western democratic values. But if AI is going to be the most important technology in the world, and a lot of it is coming from China, and some of it is being built with authoritarian values, does that change the way the rest of the world works? Does it make it harder for democracy to thrive? I don't think the answer is, well, the answer isn't clear, but it's possible. It's possible that there could be a negative consequence there. A worse thing would be, what if the world divides? This is what's happening right now. What if the world divides into a Chinese tech sphere and a Western tech sphere? Right? And you're starting to see that, right? Zimbabwe, the government of Zimbabwe, not the most important country in the world, but it's a telling one, has decided to buy its 5G infrastructure from China and to build surveillance systems for the government from China. That's pretty dark. That's pretty worrisome. Venezuela, similar things. So there's certainly still time on this. There's time for the countries to get together. There's time for the US tech sector, Western tech sectors, Chinese tech sectors to get together to not split apart in this way that's very ominous. There's definitely a chance that we can do that. And there's definitely a chance that China, even in China, that the values baked into artificial intelligence will be ones that more closely align with those of Western democracy. But this is something that I think we need to really be wary about and really need to think about, because I think we're making some bad decisions. My last point, again, another picture of my son. The future is going to be crazy. It is so interesting. There are so many complex choices we have to make, and it's conversations that I hope we'll have afterwards, that I hope we'll have tomorrow, that I hope will help make society make the right choices as we head off into this wonderful, distant, amazing future driven by technology. So thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for listening.